Amara kept her list tucked safely away in the very back of her prayer journal, written in a steady but soft purple ink on pages that were still slightly wavy from the tears she had shed 2 years before. She remembered that specific London night with an ache that had only recently turned into a scar. It was a cold, rainy November evening in her flat, the kind of night where the city feels vast and completely indifferent to a soul's quiet longing. She had just come home from a church gathering where she felt entirely invisible, watching yet another couple share a glance that spoke of deep, mutual understanding. Amara had stepped out of her damp coat, made a cup of mint tea, and sat on the rug by her radiator, feeling a profound, heavy honesty settle over her. She was 26 then, navigating the demanding corporate world of London, a British Jamaican woman trying to balance the independent rhythm of her modern life with a faith she refused to compromise. That night, she stopped pretending. She opened her journal and poured out her heart to God, writing down the traits of the man she truly desired, not out of greed, but out of a deep need for sanctuary. Patient, prayerful, hard-working, a man who loves you before he loves me, someone who makes me feel safe without making me feel small. She had wept over those words, staining the purple ink, praying with a desperate sincerity until the early hours of the morning. For 2 years, she carried that journal in her handbag like a passport to a country she wasn't sure she would ever be allowed to visit, watching the ink fade as the seasons changed and the silence from heavens stretched on. Then her mother called from Jamaica on a Thursday afternoon and completely upended her world. Her mother's voice came through the line with that unmistakable, heavy St. Elizabeth cadence, full of a rhythmic authority that brooked absolutely no argument. She told Amara that a young man named Solomon, whose family had deep generational ties to their own grandmother back home, was coming to London for a contract assignment and would be visiting her in exactly 2 weeks. Amara sat very still on her velvet couch, staring out her window at the grey London skyline, her modern sensibilities instantly flaring up in absolute defiance. She argued with her mother, reminding her sharply that they were living in the 21st century, not an era of arranged country matches. Amara was an educated, self-sufficient woman with a flourishing career and a beautifully curated life. She did not need her family playing matchmaker with a boy from the Jamaican countryside just because of an old family friendship. For the next 14 days, Amara went to war with herself. She rehearsed firm, polite rejection speeches while riding the underground to work, her stubbornness hardening with every passing day. She even went to God in prayer, a half-hearted, defensive conversation where she fully expected the Almighty to side with her modern independence and validate her resistance. But the heavens remained suspiciously, frustratingly quiet, leaving her to stew in her own determination. When Saturday arrived, the doorbell rang with a clear, deliberate chime. Amara pulled open the door, her defenses fully raised, only to find her expectations completely shattered. Solomon did not look like a boy sent on a family errand. He was a man who possessed a striking, unhurried presence. He was tall, with broad shoulders wrapped in a simple tweed coat, carrying himself with a grounded ease that didn't demand attention but naturally commanded the room. He had deep, dark eyes that held a quiet warmth, and a closely trimmed beard that framed a calm, reflective face. He didn't rush toward Amara. Instead, he stepped inside, greeted her mother and father with a respectful, traditional head bow and a warm embrace, and then turned his full attention to her. He looked at her, his expression entirely free of pressure, and said with a low, resonant voice that carried a soft, comforting lilt, "I know this is incredibly strange, Amara, and I know you didn't ask for this setup. I just appreciate you being willing to have a conversation with me." The sheer honesty of his words caught her off guard. She had a sharp remark resting on the tip of her tongue, but the genuine respect in his demeanor made the words dissolve before she could speak them. By their second visit, the rigid walls Amara had built began to show their first real fractures. They were sitting on her parents' back veranda in Brixton, the evening air filled with the rich, savory aroma of the curry goat and fried dumplings her mother had prepared without anyone asking. They were talking about the realities of living in a bustling metropolis like London, and Amara, still trying to maintain a safe distance, made a sharp, witty comment about the superficial nature of modern relationships. Instead of becoming defensive or trying to impress her with a grand speech, Solomon simply leaned back against the wicker chair, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. He looked at her and said that a real relationship wasn't about finding someone who fit into a pre-made mold, but about finding someone who was willing to build a foundation from the ground up, starting with their knees on the floor. The comment was so natural, so entirely devoid of performance, that Amara felt a sudden, inconvenient softening in her chest. She caught herself leaning in, enjoying the deep, resonant sound of his laughter when she shared a story about her corporate struggles, and she instantly hated how easily her guard was slipping. Without him ever knowing her journal existed, Solomon had just quietly checked the most sacred box on her list. He was a man who lived inside his faith comfortably, treating it like a well-loved home rather than a Sunday morning coat. The true turning point arrived on a quiet Friday night after Solomon's fourth visit. Amara came back to her flat, the silence of the rooms feeling different now, no longer empty but filled with a lingering warmth. She took her prayer journal from her bedside drawer, sat down at her kitchen table, and opened to the wavy purple-inked page. Slowly, deliberately, she went through the list point by point, examining the last few months of her life against the words she had written in tears 2 years ago. She thought of his patience, how he had navigated her sharp, guarded remarks with a gentle, unbothered grace, never pushing for more than she was willing to give. She thought of his prayerful heart, how he had naturally asked to pray over her before he left, his voice steady and intimate, speaking to God like an old friend. She looked at the words safe without making me feel small, and remembered how he had listened to her career ambitions with genuine admiration, elevating her thoughts rather than dimming her light. Sitting alone in the soft glow of her kitchen lamp, the realization washed over her like a warm wave. God had heard every single word. He hadn't ignored her prayer. He had simply packaged the answer in the exact cultural tradition she had tried so hard to reject, delivering her blessing through the very door she had stood in front of with her arms crossed. A soft, breathless laugh escaped her lips, a laugh of complete surrender and profound humility. She picked up a pen and wrote in fresh ink at the bottom of the faded page, "Lord, you truly have a sense of humor." The following morning she dialed her mother's number, her heart beating with a joyful certainty. When her mother answered with her usual brisk greeting, Amara took a deep breath and simply said, "Mama, tell his grandmother I said hello." The silence on the other end of the line lasted for 2 agonizing seconds before the glorious, unrestrained sound of pure Jamaican joy came pouring through the receiver, her mother praising the Lord and instantly planning the celebration. Their wedding the following spring was a beautiful, sun-drenched tapestry of their shared worlds. The church was filled with the vibrant colors of West Indian elegance, the air thick with the scent of white lilies and sweet rum cake, and the music a rich blend of traditional hymns and soulful melodies. It was a day rooted in deep faith and communal celebration, but the true heart of their marriage lived in the quiet spaces that followed. Months later, on a peaceful evening in their own home, Amara sat on the couch with her old journal in her lap, the purple ink now a permanent testament to a faithful God. Solomon sat beside her, his unhurried presence wrapping around her like a familiar blanket. As she finished reading the list aloud to him, he smiled, his dark eyes crinkling at the corners with that same gentle warmth. He reached out, taking her hand, and asked softly, "So, tell me the truth. Did I actually make the cut?" Amara looked at him, her eyes shining with a deep, unbreakable knowing, and let the moment breathe between them before she spoke the words that had become her heart's sweetest anchor. "Solomon," she whispered, leaning into his strength, "you didn't just make the cut, you were the list. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart." Psalm 37 verse 4. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more inspiring stories.